put down on the car. Doesn't matter now.
Okay, hey everybody, sorry for the delay. I'm gonna take the hit on this one. Yancey says somehow I fumbled around and put the camera into photo mode instead of video mode and we lost audio. So we've been just down here panicking and panicking, trying to get going live because this all has to get done no matter what. Anyway, today we're gonna talk about removing orange peel. This is an orange. And Craig, can you go ahead and zoom in on the light down here? Just in case anybody doesn't really know what orange, when they say the word orange peel, what does that mean? So, let's see. You're gonna
be behind. You're there. You're at it.
Right here?
Yep.
Okay, so this texture that you see here kind of resembles the texture of an orange. So that's where the name comes from, orange peel. And the way orange peel happens is it's in the painting process. It's how the paint lays down, flows, and then dries. I'm not a painter. I can't give you the technical reason why you get orange peel. You just do. I do want to kind of start this just saying that what I'm going to show here today is the way I sand down cars. I probably sand down, do complete wet sand cut and buffs on cool cars like this 3 to 4 times a year. Been doing it all my life. So what I'm saying is I'm not saying this is the right way. I'm not saying this is the correct way. I'm just saying this is my way. And I always like to tell people, however you get to shiny, that's really all that's important. This is how I'm gonna get to shiny. So here's what we've got. We've got a 1969 AMC AMX. This is a resto mod in process. Go ahead and say, come on over here and say hi.
I gotta do that.
Just real quick, hey.
I'm Batman, he's Robin.
You're Robin, I'm Batman, your sidekick.
But no, you guys have fun. I gotta get to my shop because I have projects that I'm working on, so I will see you later. Have fun.
Thank you. Thank you for getting us going live. Forgot where I was at, Craig. We were talking about,
Orange peel.
Orange peel, ruined orange peel. Anyway, so this is the way I do it, and there's a lot of technique involved in this. But anyway, this is a 1969 AMC AMX. That's where I was going. So this is a resto rod. It just came out of the paint booth right about 4 weeks ago. So this paint job is like 30 days old. Perfect for sanding and buffing. You know, my friend Wayne Carini, one time I was talking to him about how long they wait before they sand the custom paint jobs they put on their cars at F40.com. And he says, we like to wait 3 to 6 weeks and let that paint, and he used the word shift. And he says, because the panels are going to contract, they're going to expand and contract, and the paint's going to kind of move around. It's a flexible membrane. But at some point, it's going to get happy with where it's at, and then we go in and sand. So I like to wait a few weeks if possible. In collision shops, usually they got to sand the next day because they got to get the car back on the road. But this is a custom build. Anyway, so this has a base coat, clear coat finish, and it has massive orange peel. But one of the things I've done is I've already went ahead and hand sanded the passenger side, just because the process I'm going to show this, the thing that's going to take the longest is the sanding process. So anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started. So for the roof there, a night ago, we actually used 2500 grit. The orange peel wasn't too bad up there, but the orange peel is fairly excessive down here, and it kind of varies on cars depending on the painter and maybe when they painted different panels. But I'm going to go ahead and cut this with some 1500 grit just to kind of flatten it out fast. Now, if you've never sanded before, this is a flexible sanding pad. This is actually one from Meguiar's. It's called the E7200. It's like a medium density sponge rubber, and it has a really nice flat side. What I like about it is I can oftentimes, say if I need different sizes, I just take a pair of scissors and I just cut the size I need, wrap the sandpaper around it. And like I got to do these fake louvers up on the hood, so I'm going to cut one about the size of a pencil eraser and tackle that. But I kind of like these for that reason. But real quickly, in case you're, again, in case you've never done this before, here's a hard block from Lucky Blocks. This is a hard block from Eagle Abrasives. They call this their candy block. This is a traditional 3M style hard block. And people ask me all the time, well, Mike, shouldn't you be hard blocking that paint job out to get it flat? And the thing is you don't want to be the guy on the finishing side that comes in and hard blocks a fresh paint job if the guy that prepped the panel did not use a hard block, because you'll be the person that finds the high spots. So that's why it's important to know what you're working on, and you just can't go wrong with a flexible backing pad like this. Okay, so then I've got a little bit of soapy water over here mixed up in both my bucket. Can you pan over here, Craig? Can they see this? Just real quick, a shout out to my friends at Grit Guard. I love these detailing carts because it holds my bucket for when I'm washing a car, but also it holds my bucket when I'm sanding a car. So I don't got to bend over. I don't got to drag a table around. I just got this cart that rolls around with me. So there's two ways to wrap a piece of sandpaper, Craig, around a block. Okay, so some guys like to fold, some guys like to wrap. So folding is you take the paper and you fold it in half, and then you just wrap it around the sanding disc like this. I don't know, I've always been the wrapping guy, so I take and I wrap the paper around it, but both ways will work. And then just make sure when you're sanding, you're not sanding with the side with the seam on it, okay? And now the next thing you gotta do is you gotta figure out how to hold this thing. And what you wanna do is you wanna put pressure down over the entire face of this hand backing pad. But you also need to be able to grip it. So what I do is I take my pinky and my thumb and I grab the sides. I take my 3 fingers here and push them down into the middle. And then, this is also just some soapy water. And then I'm ready to start sanding. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start sanding on the edge here. And one of the things that when you're sanding a car, there's there's basically 2 different ways to do this. You can sand right to the edge, or you can use a technique I call the rule of thumb. Okay, and the rule of thumb is really lame. But if you go to Google and type in the rule of thumb and add Mike Phillips, you'll pull my article up, and there's a little video there too. But my thumbnail is about a 1/2 inch long, and if I put my thumbnail down here in the paint, and then I try to sand about a thumbnail distance away from the edge, what that does is when I go to buff it out, I don't have to try to buff right on the edge, because that's when you're gonna burn through the paint. It's the one that's in the charger there. Yep, that one right there. I just got that one going for this morning. And then you can turn this one on over here. Sorry, we are behind, so I don't get the lights on. But anyway, so for show car work, you know, it's a good idea to sand right up to the edge. That way you have a uniform appearance with no orange peel. But the thing about that is it takes a lot of time, because it's easy to sand. Sanding's easy, putting scratches in. The difficult part is pulling them out. And the closer you sand to the edge, the more you're gonna have a spinning wool pad by that edge, and that's where you risk burning through. So when I teach classes on this, I try to teach the students that, you know, I'm here to give you a foundation to build on. We're not here to make this car perfect. We're gonna get really good, but, you know, I'm not gonna have my students sand right up to the edge, because it would just take forever to get that car done. And most of my classes have anywhere from 3 to, one class I had 17 cars in it. So I bring in a lot of cool cars for people to train on. But anyway, so back to this. I am gonna go ahead and sand next to the edge, just because this is a show car and this is some show car sanding work. So here's how this would work. Now, can you bring this down into this area here? Right here. Okay, so I've got this sharp corner up here, and I've taken, by the way, and I've elevated the hood here. This is actually just a little piece of plastic pipe that comes with the grit guard, and I'm just gonna stick it down here. Now it's kind of elevated up, and I'll show you something else I'm gonna do to elevate this thing later. But what I wanna do is I wanna come down here, and this is called edging a panel. So the first thing you wanna do when you sand down a panel is you wanna knock out all the edges. It's easy to sand this big flat area out here. The hard part is sanding around the edges. So always do the hard part first. And I'll show you 2 different ways, and there's a little bit of controversy over this, but, you know, again, find a way that works for you. But what I like to do is I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna put my 3 fingers right up here on the kind of the top part here, so I can put some more pressure on it. And I'm just gonna come down here and make about a 1-inch sanding mark pattern. And then I'm gonna move over very slowly. So I'm gonna start moving this thing over, taking just like a 3/8 of an inch at a time. If you don't wanna move your sanding block over too fast, it kind of looks like M's or W's. You wanna keep a nice tight pattern. There's a power switch on the back of that thing. Then come back over. So this is one way. Now the idea behind this way, and if you look right here, see that white water? So when you sand a clear coat, it turns milky, because it's kind of like a glass. If you scratch glass, it's not clear, it's opaque. So when you scratch something clear, it usually turns opaque. Now I'm gonna come down here and wipe this off. But the reason I was sanding like that in this little edge there was for the sole purpose of keeping all my sanding marks going the same direction. So some guys say always sand in the same direction. Okay, and that does kind of make sense, but for me, because I'm gonna come back and machine sand to refined, it never really seems to matter. And this is a lot more time consuming and harder to do. Then after you edge that panel, then you'd come here and you'd edge right here. Now, when I'm running along the edge here, I'm actually gonna use my thumb to feel where that edge is at, so I don't actually sand on the edge. That would look like this. And when it comes to how fast you move your hand, this is just something I want to share. If you go slow, because maybe you're scared, it's your first time, it's just a tick more difficult, because what's easier is to move your hand quickly and let inertia help you to keep it moving so you can get the car done and at some point go home. So I always tell people this, when I'm detailing the car, my whole goal is to get in and get out. What does that mean? It means, look, it takes a long time to detail the car from start to finish. So imagine you get up, you're washing the wheels and tires, then you're washing the body, then you're claying it, then you're compounding the polishing. That just takes a long time. So why would I want to do it in any way that takes longer? Well, I don't, but I want to get in, get out. And that's why I like to get my hand moving when I'm sanding. Okay, so now if you can bring that camera down here, you can see I've edged this part of the panel. I've got my sanding marks just about 1/8 inch away from the edge, and that's good enough for me because I'm going to hit that a little bit with the machine too. And then if you come up here, I could get a little bit closer up here, but for demonstration purposes, I just wanted to show you this little, just knocking out about 1 inch of paint when you're edging the panel. Now, this is why you do this. Here's why. So now that I've got this edge done and this edge done, now it's really easy for me to come back in and sand this area, and now instead of having to bring it all the way up to the edge, where if I make one little movement that's wrong, I'll hit the edge, and now I'm gonna burn through. Now I only gotta bring it up to where I left off sanding, so it'd look like this. And then I'm moving my hand over at a very, very slow rate. You don't wanna do this, make M's and W's. So you just wanna move that thing over really, just a little bit at a time. Nice, it's called a tight pattern. You don't want a large pattern. You want a nice, tight, linear pattern. And the size of the area that you want to work is usually, it's no bigger than, say, 1 foot by foot. We'll go and wipe this off, see how that looks. And the goal when you're hand sanding is to try to get that paint to look as dull and uniform as possible, meaning your sanding marks are uniform in depth, so they're going to refine or remove faster and easier. Okay, so now when I come down here, so look at this area right in here, this looks pretty flat. As I come back over here, I can still see some orange peel in here, so I know I need to sand this area some more. But anyway, that's how you would edge a panel and then tie the center section to the edge. Now, the other way to do this, and this is where the controversy is you sand in different directions. So in the way that it was easy for me to sand in a linear pattern next to this edge here, instead of doing this up here, I can turn my pad and just run it this way. The thing is now I've got sanding marks going this way and this way. And that's kind of where some guy's saying, oh, you should keep all your sanding marks in the same direction. But look, I've been doing this a long time. And if you're gonna machine by hand, if you're gonna refine your hand sanding marks by machine, it kind of doesn't matter. Because, if you're doing this properly, it doesn't matter which direction the sanding marks are going because you're going to refine them by machine and leave a super uniform flat finish with very shallow sanding marks that are going to buff out very easily. What's those dingas? I forgot to put my Bluetooth on. Okay, we'll let that dry then. Can you maybe see if you can just kind of zoom in and show that? Okay, putting on the... Okay, I also got my Bluetooth in. If anybody's got a question while we're doing this, give me a call and I'm happy to answer live on air here. Okay, how's that look on screen? Pretty good? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is actually knocked out. I wouldn't go any further than this. Anyway, that's the 2 different ways you can sand. Keep all your sanding marks in a straight line, or let the panel talk to you and sand in a way that is the easiest way to get the job done. And don't worry about the direction of the sanding marks. You can always come back and fix that up. Now, I still didn't need to do this lower trailing edge here. So to do this, I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out, set it down here. And I just got a little block of wood here. Actually, I got a couple different blocks. I just keep all different sizes around the shop. I'm gonna poke this down here where the trunk lid latch is and bring this down and kind of snug it right in there. And now look how easy this is for me to sand. I don't got to try to get down here. So I always try to make things as easy as I can. This just has a little bit of Dawn dishwashing soap. And the reason you want to put a little soap in your sanding lube is for 2 reasons. One, the lubrication actually helps the sandpaper, because it's gritty, to move easier over the surface so you can get a more uniform sanding result. But it also helps the paint from loading up and clogging your sanding paper. So, and it's not like a lot. Don't put like a cup of dish soap in a bottle. Put like a couple drops. And when you're sanding, it's a good idea. I kind of skipped something here, Craig. Doggone it. That's why I should have notes. Okay, just looking at this real quick. When you first start out sanding on any paint job, because you've got to talk about a topic called paint hardness. Paint hardness or top coat hardness is an unknown variable. Every paint can be different. This looks good. You guys can't see what I'm looking at. I see a couple places I'll go ahead and grab. I didn't quite get that right there. I'm sure that got it. But what you want to do when you're first starting out is you want to do a little sanding test spot. So sand a little bit and count your strokes, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then stop and wipe off. And if you did like 10 passes, you know, using your technique, your pressure and everything, you should be able to look and see what kind of progress you're making. And that'll tell you, you know, if you need to sand more or sand less. But if you need to sand more, that might tell you that the paint's hard. If you need to sand less, that might tell you the paint's kind of soft. So you want to kind of find out if that paint is hard or soft at the very beginning. And there's an important reason why, which I'll share right now. So here's kind of another little controversy. We've got this beautiful radiused line here where the trunk kind of waterfalls down to the back where it'll catch up with the taillights at some point. If I try to sand this in a linear motion, I can do it, but I have to focus pretty hard on rolling my sanding disc and trying to keep pressure equal everywhere. So the problem is because this becomes a high point when you look at this as a flat surface, you know, it's mostly got pressure right in the middle. You actually risk taking too much paint off on the top of that radius curve there. So it's actually safer is to come down here and again use a linear motions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20. So there's 20 solid back and forth strokes. Now we'll look at this. I'm blowing, it makes the water evaporate off. And for that area there, what do you think, Greg? Nailed it, didn't it? Yep. Okay, so I'm just in like the 20 stroke pattern for leveling the orange peel here and getting that paint flat. So let me go ahead and knock this out. But I mean, if you want to do it this way, I guess it's up to you, you can, but it's just so much easier. And because it's easier on me, but it's also faster and safer to the paint.
What grit are you using now, Mike?
This is 1500 Eagle Abrasives by KOVAX. My good friend at KOVAX, he sent these for me to test out because I used to use the Nikken paper, but so far these are working just as well. And what I like about Eagle by KOVAX is I can pretty much buy it anywhere. With the other brand I like to use, it gets a little hard because there's only a couple distributors in the United States. Okay, so completely flat, no orange peel. It means I can move on to the next section, which is kind of just right here. And the hand sanding part usually takes the most amount of time. Machine sanding goes pretty fast. And I'm going to show two different ways to machine sand. I'm going to show machine dry sanding with Eagle Abrasives by KOVAX, and I'm going to show machine damp sanding using 3M Trizac. Both are great systems. It's just, here's what I know. If I only show one, everybody will ask me about the other. So I figured I might as well show both. That is beautiful. You guys can't see what I can see, but we're done there. And look how fast that was using 1500 grit. I mean, I just really just knocked that thing down. Okay, it's all locked in there. Gonna come back. A lot of times I just like to put a little bit of sanding lube right where I'm gonna sand there and rinse this off in my bucket. But see how I'm moving my hand very slowly over the surface. That's called a tight pattern. You want to keep a tight pattern. Okay, well that's flashing there. I'm going to come over here and hit some of this. See how that's looking. So while I'm wiping this off and inspecting, Craig, why don't you zoom in on the GTS over there? Tell everybody about that. So my friend Craig here, running the camera, he's kind of a savant when it comes to savant, like a genius. He's really knowledgeable about classic muscle cars, and he knows how to read the VIN tag and tell you everything it should have or shouldn't have. And he came in. I have this car here for a class coming up on Saturday, July 12th. And it's really a great training car. It has a base coat, clear coat finish, but it's been sitting in a garage, a barn find, for over a decade. So it's been sitting around. And the paint's in really bad shape. Craig comes walking and goes, "Oh my gosh, this is a unicorn." So tell him what you know about that car, Craig.
It's a 1969 GTS convertible 340 4-speed with air conditioning. They probably didn't make 50 of these if they made that many. And there's probably only 10 left in the world.
Probably.
Car's in very good shape.
It's all original shape, too. I mean, no one's cut it up or junked it up, and you were going around filling the body panels, you think it's all original sheet metal, too. Yep. Okay, so what I've done is I've completely flattened out this panel, hand sanding with 1500 grit. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and refine, and usually if I sand with 1500 grit, I might wanna resand with 2000. I'm gonna skip that just for time's sake. But the other reason I'm gonna skip this is I've already done the roof, and this paint buff's really easy. So I'm confident that I can refine this. I'll use 2500 grit, so I'll have to walk over and get it. I had 3000 queued up, but we'll go with 2500. Bear with me for 1 second. Okay, here we go. I love machine dry sanding. It's fast, it's easy, it's clean, it's neat. Normally, you should always wear a respirator or a dust mask of some type. And because I'm just gonna be doing a little bit here and it's gonna mess up all the audio, I'm just gonna do this free-spirited kind of method. Don't ever look to me for safety advice. Okay, so real quickly, so this first thing, when I go to machine sand this, I wanna do the same thing I did when I hand sanded. I wanna edge the panel, and then I can come back and use the big sanding disc and knock out the easy to buff flat areas. So to edge it, this is the FLEX Pixie. And when this tool first came out, I got a prototype. I got the #1. And the first thing I looked at this, I go, this is gonna be a great mini sander. Okay, it's sold as a paint polisher. But the problem is there's no good mini sanders on the market. And another part of that problem is everybody has jumped on the long stroke bandwagon. So if you try to find a small polisher with a small stroke, you can't do it. Almost everything's like 12 millimeter. It's too big. What's gonna happen is when you try to sand next to an edge, you'll hit the edge. Now when you come and buff out, you'll buff through. So as soon as this thing came out, and these things, they come with 3 different drive units. I got the 6 millimeter here, but they come with 3 different drive units. They come with a 3 millimeter, a 12 millimeter, and a rotary. So the first thing I did is I fired off a letter to the president of FLEX. I copied Chris Metcalf and also sent it to their engineer. And I says, I don't care what you send me, 5 millimeter, 6 millimeter, 7 or 8, but I need something in between 12 and 3. And they sent me a 6 millimeter, and the rest is history. Now you can buy one. I think they're like 45 bucks. But it really turns this thing into an awesome sanding machine. And I don't understand how any body shop anywhere in the world doesn't have one of these for doing thin panels like this Dutchman panel up here. Okay, so anyway, so that's just a little bit about the PXE80, or as I like to call it, the Pixie. Okay, so now the next thing I do is I got an interface pad on here. I just want to share something. I recently taught a class with Jason Rose, and Jason Rose is in charge of product development, and they came up with this really nice foam interface pad. And it's similar to the Eagle Abrasives pad, but let me show you the differences. They both use a microscopic hook, and that's important. If you look at a lot of Velcro, you got big J hooks, big mushroom hooks. You gotta have tiny hooks because it keeps the thin sanding disc flat against the surface to flatten it, not go in and out all the imperfections of the paint, like orange peel. So it's similar in that it uses a microscopic hook and loop, but it's a little bit thicker, and the foam is just a little bit denser. It's got a nicer feel to it. This is a little bit on the weak side, I'd say. So I think Jason Rose, hats off to you and your team there at RUPES. You guys did a great job bringing out these interface pads. And when you're machine sanding, you should always have an interface pad. Okay, so I've already got the 3-inch RUPES interface pad on my backing plate there. Now I'm going to grab some 2500. This is K2500 Eagle abrasives. They call it the FLEX. They got funny names for their stuff. You want to center that so no part of the Velcro is going to come in contact with the paint. It just takes some practice. I'm usually a lot better at this. Boom. Okay, now when you use this tool, a couple of things about sanding with any kind of tool. You don't want to stay in one place, okay? If the sanding paper is working, it's taking paint off, okay? So keep it moving. Do not stop in one place. And then you don't really sand with just a smooth action. Use what I call a herky-jerky motion. You want to go like this, and as I go, if I start down here, as I go forward, I can come back here and I can kind of see the progress I've made. It's dusty, but I can still kind of see it and go, ah, that looks good. I can go forward. I can go, you can monitor your progress and keep moving along. And it's just the technique works for me, but you can all figure this out on your own. Okay, so another little quick thing is these have a rocker switch. You got to rock it forward. Has a digital control. And usually what I like to see when I'm sanding with the free spinning DA sander like this is I want to see just a little bit of pad rotation. I don't need a lot of pad rotation because that goes from sanding to grinding. I don't want to be grinding this guy's paint job. So what I do is I start out like on the 1 or the 2, set it down, and then act like I'm going to sand and see if I got rotation. I got no rotation, so I'm going to bump it up to 3. Now I got a little rotation. And then, see that white paint coming off? See that white paint coming off? Can you do me a favor and go grab me some of those towels over there? As you're sanding, you need to clean the face of your disc off often and also wipe the dust off here. If you clean this off and bring it right down there where the dust is, you'll just load this up again. So clean both sides and then keep sanding. And the way you sand this is you just take a microfiber towel, and you can do it one of 2 ways. Here, I'll show you. You can just hold your hand like this and go like this, just kind of wipe it. Or you can lay it down where you're working and just kind of wipe it like that. That cleans off all the sanding dust and then get back to sanding. Okay, so let me just go ahead and I'll start up here. And while I'm sanding, let me explain why I didn't like the 3-inch and why I did not like the 12-inch drive units for the Pixie. So here's why. The 3-inch, or the 3 millimeter, 12 millimeter, the 3 millimeter, it's too anemic. You can't maintain any sanding disc rotation at all. So it's just not a good way to sand. I like this tiny orbit stroke because it means I can get close to an edge, but if I'm not sanding, it's a waste of time. The 12 millimeter orbit stroke, the orbit stroke is so big, if you try to sand next to an edge, you'll hit the edge and you'll go through. So that's why the 6 millimeter works so good. Can you pick up on that at all and see how smooth that is? This path I did right here. So if you come over here and look, Craig, you can see the hand sanding marks. They're going this way because I sanded this way. But as soon as you get to this little section where I edged it, now it's just flat and dull with a very uniform sanding mark pattern. That's 2500 grit. It would buff out very easily. Anyway, that's kind of how you edge a panel. So let me keep going here. Like I said, machine sanding is faster. It's also easier. I mean, anytime you do anything by hand, that takes some skill. And if you're new to this, you probably don't have any skill. Okay, so I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to start edging my panel that way. So I'm going to be replacing 1500 grit with 2500 grit. And as I'm doing this, it's very easy for me to see that I've completely removed the hand sanding marks, and I can start creeping forward. Let me clean that off. And as I do this, just because of the way the human muscles work, sometimes I just get a little bit closer to that edge, but I'm still not hitting that edge. Now, when it comes to removing sanding marks next to edges, let me just go ahead and discuss that. Can it be done? You bet it can be done. You can take one of my favorite tools. This is the RUPES long neck nano with the 1-inch backing plate. And you can throw a microfiber or a micro wool pad on there, and you can pull all those sanding marks out right along the edge and have really good control so you don't burn through the corner. The problem with that is, how long is that going to take? It's going to take forever. you know, and it kind of goes back to, I want to get in, get out, you know,
The thing I've learned about people is they will let you work for free forever. So if someone brings you a car to sand, you know, you gotta draw the line somewhere where you're gonna go home. And to me, that just means I'm not standing next to all the edges. Now, if the dude wants to pay me $100 an hour to go around and get all those edges, you bet, I'll do it. But most guys, when you tell them that, they're like, nah, just get it good, Mike. Just get it good. This is a driver. It's not a Dave Kindig showpiece. Okay, so now I'm gonna clean this off. I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna change directions because I need to get this corner right here. Now I'm just gonna come down. Inspect, looks good. I need to do this whole trailing edge down here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and lift this up again. Stick in my block of wood. Sometimes I'll have a bungee cord out here and I'll hook onto something and pull it down so it doesn't flop around. I'm not doing that today though. Then I'm gonna go ahead and get a new sanding disc. There's still some life in that, but I wanna go faster, so. Where is my little guy sanding discs? There, right here. Need a bigger table. Okay, so fresh sanding disc, centered up. Okay, so now I need to do this whole bottom edge of the trunk lip here. I like to look behind me going this way, so I'll start right here. As you get better at this, your confidence increases. You can actually go up to the 4. So still not quite grinding, but man, that sucker is cutting. Just look at all the paint that's coming off. And that's 2,500 grit. I mean, these things cut fast and they hold up for a long time. But later on, when the cameras are off, I will probably jump up to the 4 setting and edge every panel on this car. I'm gonna hand sand it first. So the question kind of comes up, what's the difference between hand sanding and machine sanding? Why would you do one over the other? And that is a great question. And here's the reason. Hand sanding, sometimes called soft block or hard block sanding, is the best way to completely flatten that paint job out. And the reason you want the paint job flat is because that's how you get a mirror finish. I mean, so when you look into the paint, your reflections of your face or the buildings around you are very defined and clear. So that's called distinction of image, DOI. So this thing had, you know what we forgot to do, doggone it? It's okay, I already took readings, but this is the detailometer. And I've actually took the before reading here. I think the DOI was about 64, but I got a picture of it so I can show you that. When we're done, I'll come down here and measure this and show you the difference in the DOI and the haze and the gloss and all that stuff. But the reason you want to hand sand instead of machine sand for your initial cut, because it's the best way to really get that paint flat. And that's the goal, to get it flat to maximize the DOI and get what's called a show car finish or a mirror finish. Okay, so now I've edged this whole panel with 2,500. Now it's really fast and easy to come back with what I call the big guy. Here's the big guy. This is a 6-inch DA. This is actually a FLEX, it's actually a FLEX wood sander. The part number is FX3411. It's a 1.6 millimeter orbit stroke. That's called a finishing sander. A 3/16 or a 3/8 or a 5/16 would be kind of a rough work sander. So this is a finishing sander. And I think it's kind of interesting. It's like, I always have people tell me I'm doing it wrong. So if someone says, well, Mike, you can't use that to machine sand. It's for wood. You can't use it on car paint. Well, here's what I know. Every car I've used this on, it works awesome. Okay, and because it's leaving a very fine, final finishing sanding mark, it buffs out easy. Okay, so then here's how this works. By the way, just real quickly, this has a 5-inch backing plate, but I got a 6-inch interface pad. And I never did this on purpose, but I kind of like it. So when I'm teaching students, instead of having a backing pad that goes all the way to the edge, putting maximum pressure down, there's a little give there. So if my students get close to an edge, it's not as dangerous. That's why I like that. Okay, so now all I gotta do is tie in this center section with the part that I edge. And that's why I edge a panel. I do the hard part first, then I knock out the easy part. Okay, I can already tell it's time to look at that. Gotta clean all that dust off there. Okay, and then got to clean it off here. I'll just put what's here back onto the sanding disc. Okay, so I think I made, what was it, 3 crosshatch patterns, and that is, it's not quite 100% refined, but that's how fast this works. So I'll just hit it again. Inspect. That looks good. Okay, now I'm going to tackle the center section, but I am going to overlap a little bit into the previous section just to ensure I have good, what's called UMR. What does UMR stand for? Uniform Material Removal. It's an important term to know whether you're doing paint correction or sanding, but the idea is you want to take the same amount of material off of one area as you do all the other areas. So it's uniform, and then you'll have a uniform appearance. Okay, look at all that paint coming off. Okay, I think that was 3. This is one of the things I always teach guys is count your section passes out loud, otherwise you'll forget where you're at. And you know, it's a technique works for me, so if that was 3, this would be the 2nd time I went over that. And that looks good. So that's a total of 5 section passes over that. Still pulling lots of paint off. So people always ask me, how can you tell when the sanding disc has stopped cutting? Well, if you don't see any paint coming off, it's probably a good sign to quit cutting. Put another disc on. That was 1. That's 2. That's 3 still. Doing the whole trunk lid with 1 disc here. After this, I would switch over to another disc though. I'd rather spend more money and have a fresh disc and knock the job out faster by using more discs than to sit there and try to squeeze every little scrappy last little working inch out of the disc. And notice I'm not moving my hand too fast. If you're doing this, well, that ain't gonna do nothing. You gotta give the abrasives time to kind of dig in and abrade the surface. You know, Craig, you've been to a lot of my classes, but just from taking a gander there, what do you think? Does that look pretty flat?
It looks as flat as you're gonna get.
As flat as I'm gonna get it with this. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna show is damp sanding. Okay, so for damp sanding, since we just finished with 2,500, I was going to show 5,000, but let me just go ahead and show 3,000. That way I'm not making too big of a jump. If I make too big of a jump, everybody will call me out on it, so I'm not going to do that. So here's 3,000. This stuff is on a tick on the spendy side, so prepare to be sticker shock when you go to buy some. But man, it does work great. So here's 3,000. I'm going to go ahead and put that on my interface pad over here, centered up. Okay, got that one ready to go. Come back over here to the Pixie. I'm going to pull off that sanding disc. Here's my 3-inch Trizac. I'll go ahead and stick this on here and center it up. Okay, so we started out hand wet sanding, and the reason you hand wet sand is because the liquid helps to make it easy with a little bit of soap in there to glide the sanding disc over the paper, because it is kind of scratchy, so it's when it grabs. You want something to help you to actually keep that liquid kind of smooth motion going on. It also helps prevent the sandpaper from clogging. Then we went to dry sanding, and now it's actually faster to see results, but then to clean that disc in the panel, we just use a microfiber towel. This is called damp sanding. So it's not wet sanding, it's just a little bit of water. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna edge my panel, just like I did before, do the hard part first. And same kind of motion. So I'm just going to come down here. And normally what'll happen, and I'll do a section, I'll stop right here. What'll happen as you refine your sanding marks, you start to create gloss, okay? Like a shiny finish, but you start to
get rid of some of the haze and get glossy. And that'll show up as a darkening effect. So if I just sand this area right here, and then I have Craig come up here and show you this compared to that, this should look darker. So a little herky-jerky moment here. The way these 3M sanding discs work is kind of interesting. The abrasives are embodied in a medium. Think of Jell-O, okay? And when you first start cutting, nothing takes place because as you start to move this around, this medium will break down and then it exposes the abrasives and then you start sanding. So don't be surprised if you first start out, you don't see any paint coming off. It's got to break in first. Okay, I don't think the camera's going to pick this up, but this section I just sanded is actually a little more clear, a little darker than over here. So you can kind of see that in person. I don't think you can see that on the camera. But that's one of the ways you can tell if you sanded enough and you can move on to the next section. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. And in most cases, you know, for what it's worth, it doesn't take a lot of sanding to refine, but it is probably, or I'm confident, it is the most important aspect of sanding, is refining your first sanding mark pattern to a more shallow sanding mark pattern. It's so important. It's probably the hardest thing there is to do, is to know when you've sanded enough so you can move on to a new territory. And here's why it's important. If you don't get the sanding marks out, if you don't refine the, we started out with 1500 grit. If I don't refine the 1500 to 2500, when I come to buff out, those sanding marks are gonna be a lot harder to get out of there because I didn't refine them, they're deeper. So it's really important to focus on refining and replacing one set of scratches with a more shallow set of scratches. And you know, the best way to figure out, you know, how long do I sand? Well, do some sanding, get some experience. First time I did this, I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, so I've got all the top edges done. I can tell by the darkness right there, because that was the two sections that I kind of didn't weld together there. So I need to do a little sanding here, then I'm gonna lift the hood up again. Okay. Okay, there we go. A little soapy water.
Do that again if you just kind of raise and lower because it really accents that way.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Go slow and point. Up, up. A little more, a little more. Yeah, you can see that.
Okay, so you can see the color change in the paint. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, you know, that's one way to tell when you've refined from one grit level to the other. You can actually see gloss starting. I mean, you get up to 3M Trizac 8000, you're pretty much polishing the paint by then. Yeah, I tell you, when this tool first came out, Craig, I just was like, you know, I don't care about polishing paint with that thing. I got other tools that'll work for that. I just looked and go, what a great little sander that's gonna be. And I need to talk about conventional sanding machines really quickly, just for anybody here that's never really done any sanding with a DA sander. And that is traditional, conventional DA sanders are pneumatic. You know, so body shops have big air compressors. They can run these, you know, all air tools are air hogs. That looks good. So then, but but they're all pneumatic. There are electric ones out there, and as you can see, I've got cordless ones here. But the thing about using a pneumatic, so imagine this is a pneumatic DA sander. That means back here somewhere there would be a stiff air line hooked up to it, and that thing's stiff. So now you're trying to sand, you got to try to do a good job here, and at the same time, that thing's going to be trying to kick that thing up or pull it down. You're going to be doing one or the other. Like sometimes I'll put the airline over my shoulder so it's not going to hit anything. It's kind of like you do a cord when you're buffing, but now it's trying to kick that thing up. You know, it's trying to kick it up because it's over my shoulder coming down here. And if it's down to the ground, then it's trying to kick it back. So when you're sanding with a pneumatic sander, you're always fighting the airline. With an electric sander that's corded, it's not too bad because it's limp, so you can manage it very easily. But when you go cordless, God, you still got to mess with any of that stuff. Okay, so now all I've got to do, remember we talked about this, I edged this whole panel. So that is now all 3000 grit. Now all I got to do is come back and tie in the edges with the big, flat, easy to sand areas. What's that?
Is it recommended to use soap water versus distilled water?
Oh, you know, if you really want to get nuts, you can, but I never do. Look, I use my slop sink so much, and the city water, it's whatever it is. I don't get that deep into it. I know some guys do. But it is important to use a little dish soap or your car wash soap solution. You want a little lubrication in there. And I have soap in here. In fact, if I shake this, the whole top becomes all full of suds. That's why I can tell I got soap in there. Okay, so real important, I think I already said this, but overlap your passes by 50%. Try to get as uniform as a sanding mark pattern as you can. That was what, 2 passes? Mm-hmm. 2 passes with 3000 grit. And my guess is that is enough because what I'm looking for is a completely flat, boom. Look how, it looks like matte paint is so flat. Okay, so let me, again, go to my little chunk of wood down here. I gotta knock out this. I could just bend over, but I don't like bending over, so. A little soapy water. If you look at this, you can hardly see any paint buildup, okay? So, if it's dry sanding, you can see a whole bunch of paint on there. Water. Okay, that looks good. Get this out of the way. Okay, now that this thing is completely sanded with, we started with 15, went to 25, just finished out with 3000 damp sanding. I already know these sanding marks are gonna come out really easy. If you wanted to, say you wanted to use a DA polisher to pull your sanding marks out, that's where you could go to something like the Trizac 5000 and even the 8000 if you wanna really go nuts. But the idea being is the more shallow the sanding marks are, the easier it will be to buff them out, the faster it will be to buff it out, and that way you're not heating the paint up. You know, it's never a good idea to heat up clear coats. I know back in the old days people say you gotta heat it up to reflow the paint, but that's actually not true. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just give this a quick wipe just to make sure all the sanding abrasive particles have been removed before I start buffing. You know, when I worked at McGuire's for years, one of my mentors there. His name is Mike Pennington, really smart guy. And one of the things he always said, he just drilled it into my brain. Not that I didn't do it anyway, but you know, I know how accurate what he said is true. But he always would say, work clean. And I think in my second car detailing how-to book, I went through all the things you got to do in order to machine polish a car. Then it comes to a chapter that says, I think, getting started. And it says, well, first thing is clean your garage. You know, clean your workbench off. You need a place to put your towels and your bottles, so when you pick up a bottle, it doesn't drop an aluminum bit you were drilling on something later on. You got to work clean. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so now the next step is we need to pull our sanding marks out. And before we do that, I just want to talk about that. So the question is, well, Mike, can't you use a DA polisher to pull your sanding marks out? And the answer is yes, of course you can. You know, just how long do you want to spend doing it? You got your free spinning random orbital polishers. So that's like, this is a RUPES Bigfoot 15. Okay, so free spinning. Then over here, I've got the Supa, well, the Supa Beast. Okay, and this is gear driven. So look, it won't spin freely. I got to take my hand and actually spin it to make it go. So you got gear driven, you got free spinning. And to pull the sanding marks out, it's really easy to use one of those types of polishers, whether it's an 8mm or 25mm, to pull sanding marks out of the nice big flat areas. It's when you get next to edges or raised body lines, and then it just gets a lot more time consuming and a lot more difficult, especially with a free spinning random orbital polisher. But can you do it? Yeah, I think I knew a guy one time that did a 65 Mustang. He restored it for his son and painted it himself, redid everything, and he did the entire thing with the Porter cable. So he painted himself, he sanded himself, he pulled the sanding marks out of the Porter cable. He's retired, had nothing else to do, so God bless him. But for me, I like to use a good rotary. Now, this is, I always like to share this. This is actually a prototype sent to me by FLEX in the year 2017. I don't think they were launched until SEMA of that year. And the mistake I made, and you can kind of tell because there's actually different colored plastics, and it was assembled in Germany. It has a metric arbor, where everything they actually sell to the United States is 5/8 US standard. But the mistake I made with this is I didn't count how many cars and how many boats I've actually used this on, because it's a lot and it's still going strong. So there's two types of, generally speaking, there's two types of rotary buffer work, and this is something I really learned a lot from Jason Rose. Jason, if you ever watched this video, really had a good time teaching that class up at the American Muscle Car Museum. We detailed 4 cars, paint corrections, ceramic coatings. We sanded down 2 cars in a day. So it was very fast paced, but it was a lot of fun. I had 20 students in that class. But one of the things Jason did is he kind of taught, I let him have free reign, whatever he wanted to show. We were there to really show the RUPES system, and we did. But he kind of explained that there's the European style of using a rotary buffer, and there's the American old school style. So the European style is smaller pads, okay? And you pretty much hold them flat, whether they're foam or fiber, all the time. American style is big pads. This is like an 8-inch. And a lot of times, well, I go up on edge. I know people always tell me, Mike, you're doing that wrong, but I go up on edge because it makes it easier to hold the polisher and guide it. And anytime someone tells me, Mike, you're supposed to be holding that flat, you know what that tells me? It tells me he's never buffed out a boat, okay? So a boat isn't like this, you know, it's shaped. It's like this. So that means as you're buffing a boat, that vertical panel you're trying to buff, it's not like this. It's going away from you. Taxes all these muscles. And if you try to hold that pad flat to the surface of an angled boat hull, it's going to grab and walk you all over the place. You'll never get nothing done. So what you do is you just go up on edge. Now you can buff out the whole boat. You're going to get tired, but you won't be as tired as trying to hold the pad flat. But the same thing applies to buffing out cars, okay? You can try to hold it flat, but what happens is as the pad becomes wet and you got this down on the surface, maybe this part of the pad grabs, okay? That yanks you. But after it's done yanking you, now this part of the pad grabs and it yanks you again. It just yanks you the whole time. As soon as you go up on edge, smooths the whole thing out. Okay, so we're going to cut this using CoreCut.
Before you do that, raise that lid up because it really shows where we're at on the start point. Just go slow. Goes up, up, up. Yeah, a little bit more. Perfect.
Okay.
Go up a little more.
So very, very uniform sanding mark pattern. Normally, I don't even finish out with Trizac. I just stop at 25 or 3,000 Eagle abrasives dry and start buffing, but I also always use great abrasive technology, and I know how to use Rotary. This is our new CoreCut, and I don't ever like to make our videos like commercials. I know people that take my classes say they took a class from some other company and they felt like it was a 1 day or 2 day or 3 day ad for their products. This does use very unique abrasive technology. There's nothing like it in the United States. This abrasive technology is exclusive to Dr. Beasley's. It comes from Europe and it cuts very fast. Okay, anytime you're gonna use a rotary, it's always a good idea to clean that with a spur. And the way you do that is you kind of set this on your leg. I like to bring it up to the high speed and then just run this from the center out. And that'll kick off any pebbles or rocks or sticks or leaves or dead bugs, old compound, you know, whatever might be on there. But again, you always want to work clean. Now there's two ways to use a rotary. There's the boat style technique where you put your product like right in the center. And the reason you do that is then when you put it on the side of a boat and turn it on, it keeps it trapped there so you can spread it out. If you put it on the outside edge and turn it on, it would just fly out everywhere. So you put it like a 2-inch circle around the center of a pad. The other way is called the 10 at 10 technique. So I've got a strip of product here about the size of a pencil. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this thing up. You gotta look at this like it's a clock. So here's midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and so on, like a clock. And when I pull the trigger and I'm looking down on it, it's spinning clockwise. So here's how the 10 at 10 technique works. You lay this thing down flat, you pick it up about 10 degrees, and then you run the polisher over that strip at the 10 o'clock mark. And because it's spinning clockwise, what it's gonna do is it's gonna pull it in, trap it in itself, where you can then spread it out and start buffing. If you pick it up, say down here, that pad's gonna grab it and throw it all over Craig and the camera and me. So that's the 10 at 10 technique. And when you get really good, I always teach guys, lock your power button if you're using cordless and hold the back of the battery. If you're really good, it looks like that. You don't throw splatter anywhere. I saw you back away there, Craig. Okay, so spread your product out. And I'm gonna teach you a technique called buffing off an edge. Now, when you first start buffing, you notice I'm just kind of being sloppy. That's because this pad was dry and it's kind of absorbing some of the product. So once I get my pad kind of broken in like that, now I can come back and I'll show you how to do this. So I'll put a little product down there and I'm just gonna take, and this is called finger painting. So just like I edged it when I sand, now I wanna pull out all the sanding marks on my edge. And I want two things there. I want lubrication and abrasive technology. That's what a compound polish and an AIO is. It's two things, lubrication, abrasive technology. You need both. If you're buffing dry, you'd burn through the paint. So you need a little bit of both. Now, buffing off an edge, I've got to pull the sanding marks out right next to this edge. If I bring this polisher in at this angle, that pad is spinning this way, it's gonna grab that and yank the polisher. If I tilt it this way, that pad is spinning clockwise, it's spinning off the edge. It's not gonna grab anything, it's gonna be real easy. So you wanna learn to become very accustomed to how the pad is in context with the edge that you're trying to work on, and always buff off the edge. Okay. First I'll pick that up a little bit. Now look, I'm just gonna bring this up. Just gently start to walk this back and forth over that paint, over that edge there. Monitoring, I got a couple work lights set up here so I can see what I'm doing. This is what I mean when I talked about buffing right up to the edge. It just takes a little longer because you got to carefully come up, pull those sanding marks out, and not burn through the edge at the same time. Okay, let's take a gander at that. Okay, so for me, using overhead lights, all the sanding marks are gone in this easy to sand area. There's still some sanding marks up here right next to the edge, and this is where it gets tricky. So one way you can do this, can you look in the top of those, see those two flex carts over there? Pull the top drawers open. I think the one on the right has RUPES 1-inch pads. There you go. Yeah, the one on the left. Give me the blue one. So this is their little micro wool pad. See how nice and small these are. So here's how you can safely edge a panel. Take the center of that pad up. But I'll say this again, it's very time consuming and tedious. Now to use these, because this is in rotary mode and it's gonna wanna throw the product out and splatter everywhere, what I usually do is just put a drop just right in the center, just like that. I'll come up here and kind of tap it down so I got some stuff to work with. And then I know it's gonna sling a little bit when I first turn it on, but I'm used to that. Okay, then I'm gonna tilt it a little bit and then kind of just using that herky-jerky movement, because whenever you use a rotary, this is how you would use a rotary. You go back and forth. Until you see the defects on. So when you're using an orbital, what you usually do are section passes. You dial in the test spot, you figure out how many times you need to go over that section to remove the defects to your expectations. But with the rotary, you don't really do that. You look at what you're buffing, and as soon as you see the defects you're trying to remove, whether they're swirls, scratches, water spots, oxidation, or in this case, sanding marks, until they're gone, then you move on. You don't just keep doing section passes. So rotary technique's a little bit different than orbital technique. Okay. Anyway, this is what I don't like to do. I don't like to spend this freaking, tons of time doing this type of edge work. So I will usually sand a thumbnail distance away, but I'll also tell the owner of the car that's how I'm going to approach it. And of course, then they'll say, well, Mike, won't there be some orange peel next to the edges? And that's where I say, hey, I'm happy to remove the orange peel, the sand and buff right up to the edge, but I charge $100 an hour for that. And then all of a sudden, the guy that owns the car, he's gonna go, oh no, that's okay, just get it good. And that's what I mean. People will let you work for them forever for free. Don't be that guy. Still gonna do a great job. Okay. Wiping off and inspecting. I got them all out here. There's still just a little bit here. But anyway, that's just how you use this tools to do edge work. Me, I'm just gonna go back to the big guns here. Okay. There's my strip. See how I'm moving it back and forth? I can see those sanding marks just start to kind of dissolve away. For what it's worth, I never turn my rotary off. As this thing's running, it's pulling air through it, keeping the tool cool. Okay. So as I move this forward, here's the backing plate back here. This is where all the pressure's at. I can actually feel that right here. So all this stuff here, it might be hitting the edge, but it's just kind of fluffy. It's not really doing much. What's really doing the work is right here where the edge of the backing plate is.
Looks good to me. Can you grab me another battery? That flex on the charger should be good to go. Yeah, the one right by your hand there. That one right there. Yeah, when you get a chance, maybe down on that, just pull the lever in a little. There you go. Thanks, Rick. I always forget something. There's probably a couple more down there on that roll around cart. Okay. Anyway, so doing the edge work, you know, how, if you want to use a micro tool, heck, you can even do it by hand if you want to. Most of my classes, I do teach how to pull sanding marks out by hand. It comes in handy, to play on words, because sometimes you can't get a spinning and rotating pad. You know, you can't get a buffing pad, like around side mirrors, door handles, things like that. So it's always good to have some good hand sanding techniques. Anyway, see how I'm bringing this back and forth? What I'm doing is I'm using that light overhead until I see all 100% of the sanding marks are gone. Then I know I can move forward, because the goal is 100% defect removal. Okay, I'm gonna call that good. Okay, so next I will knock out this edge. I'll come over here and knock out this edge. And then at some point I'll knock out the real easy to buff center section. If you were to watch me buff out a car, one thing you'd notice is I clean my pad often. Like every time I do a section, I stop and clean my pad. It only takes a second. What happens if you don't clean your pad often is when you add fresh product, it pollutes and dilutes. It pollutes, the fresh product is polluted by the old film of spent residue that's on the pad, and it dilutes it because now you're mixing brand new abrasive technology with spent abrasive technology. So anytime you're buffing, whether it's with a DA, a foam pad, a rotary, a cyclo, whatever it is, you need to clean your pad often, and then you buff more effectively and efficiently, and that always means faster. I never waste product. Okay, beautiful. Okay, kind of in my rhythm now. Okay, we'll just trailing edge right here. Now, coming off this, if I come in the same way I was kind of doing up there and hit this, look, it grabs that buffer, yank it right out of my hand. Coming off this way, oh, it's real easy. I mean, one hand, I buff it. That's what I mean by buffing off an edge. Okay, put a little CoreCut down here, a little bit on this side. A lot of times if I run out over here, I'll just come over here and grab, you know, put some around the key lock here. Okay. The 10 at 10 technique is kind of relative. Okay, so once you kind of figure out how that works, you can actually pick up your shipper product anywhere, but I'm gonna go ahead and just pick it up right here. Just nice and slow on this edge. Spread it out. Hard to see this corner. Here's another little technique tip. sometimes I see guys when they're trying to teach how to use a rotary polisher, they say kind of hold the tool kind of loosey-goosey. I'm like, oh no, bring it into your chest and walk up your arms and control that thing. Especially if you're buffing out some other dude's muscle car. Okay, so basically what you're watching me do is, you're watching me do edge work with an 8-inch pad instead of a 1-inch. And I kind of have a philosophy about that. My idea of being efficient is making the tool that's already in my hand do what I need it to do versus stopping, setting the tool down. I'm gonna work around the keyhole here. I need a little more abrasive technology. Stopping, setting the tool down, grabbing a different tool, different size pad. Now I just take the polisher that's in my hand and I make it do what I need it to do. That way I can go faster. Okay, so this whole thing here, the sanding marks are gone. I got this edge, then I'll lay it down flat and knock out the top portion. Boom. No blue paint. That is the goal when sanding and buffing. No blue paint. Could someone call in and ask me a question? I want to see if this system I have works. I have the ringers off so you won't hear it ring, but I'll hear it in my headphone. Okay, let's clean our pad. We'll knock out the big center, easy to buff section. So the other day, someone did ask me a question. We have 2 new compounds. We have CoreCut and CoreCut Plus. CoreCut Plus, it cuts so fast. I could use it on this because I think there's enough paint. But it's really was meant to remove deep oxidation on gel coat boats. It really cuts fast. So CoreCut here is more than enough. Okay. Watch this. Boom. Spread your product out. So I did the hard part. That was the edges. Now I come back to the easy part. And for that, I just want to spread my product out. I'm going to show you what I mean by going up edge. Now I'm going to go up on edge. I'm going to speed up to the 3. Okay, now it's just a matter of making some nice overlapping motions. Make that initial cut. I'll go up on edge for most of that. I'm going to change directions. Now I'm going to kind of do that herky-jerky thing. So I'm going to come back and forth. Whoops, sorry about that. I know I just moved the camera. Making this rotary whine a little bit today. Stuff really cuts fast. The sanding marks are gone. Okay. So as I knock this out, that 69 GTS back there that Craig was talking about, Craig, you used the term unicorn when you first came in and saw it. That's how rare it is, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Craig's not like me. He doesn't like to be the on-air personality. It's okay, though. Anyway, that's going to be for a class I'm teaching coming up right here at this shop in sunny Stuart, Florida on Saturday, July 12th. Now, that's the first car that you're going to get to work on. There's going to be 3 cars here. There's going to be that 69 Dodge Dart GTS convertible. There's going to be a 1934 Chevy sedan street rod that you're going to learn to damp sand with Trizac. And then the American Muscle Car Museum, my good friend up there, Mark and Ed, they're actually going to bring down a car that was donated to their collection, and it's completely swirled out.
It's a 1977 Grand Prix SJ with only 50,000 miles. Yeah. SJ, yeah. So another unicorn, huh?
455 engine in those.
Wow, big block, huh?
Yep.
Sanding marks are completely gone here, so let's go ahead and go back to my little chunk of wood. But those are the 3 cars.
Lower that really slow. Raise it up so I can catch the late.
Here, let me remove the residue, because everybody always sees the streaks and smears and thinks I didn't do a good job. The sanding marks are just absolutely gone. That's what happens when you finish out with 3,000 grit. You know, anybody can look like a pro. You can probably take a Porter cable and pull them all out. Okay.
Okay, raise it up. Keep going. Keep going. Just keep going up.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we started out with massive orange peel, and now starting to look like a show car. Okay, so now I need to knock out this part here. But anyway, those 3 cars. So here's the deal. If you wanted to see what one of my classes looked like, go up to my forum, the MikePhillipsForum.com. And on the middle of the page, there's the most recent threads. Scroll around till you see a thread that says 400 pictures of what our February 2-day class looks like. And look through there. You will not see anybody sitting in a chair. And you'll see all the cool cars that class worked on, including they sanded down a 1934 Ford on the 2nd day. And, but it's just intense. We start at 7:30 in the morning. And for this Dodge Dart GTS back here, the first tool you will learn on Saturday morning is the Rotary with a wool pad. That thing is hammered. And I'm going to show you how I did everything here. We're going to go and cut that thing hard, and we're going to polish it out. Anyway, we'll do that one. Then the next car is that 1934 Chevy Street Rod. And there's pictures of these cars up on my Facebook and Instagram page, the Dr. Beasley's Facebook and Instagram page. And we're going to actually damp sand that. It's got a base coat, clear coat finish. The owner says it's pretty rough. So we're going to sand it, then go back to rotaries, then orbitals and coat it. And then the last car, I do what I call free-for-all. So can you pan back there at all? There are over $50,000 of tools in this shop. We know because we just bought all these RUPES tools. There's $24,000 worth of tools back here. $24,000 just on this side. And over here, I've easily got $30,000 of FLEX tools. So the point is when you come here, you get to play with whatever tool you want to. But when we get to the SJ, the Pontiac Grand Prix SJ, I do what I call free-for-all. Use whatever tool you want. Use multiple tools. Spend more time with the tool you're thinking about. It's up to you. It's called free-for-all. Okay. What's my battery power like? Whew, got plenty of battery. Okay. Oh, this is easy. Now, whatever this paint is, the guy, I called and talked to the guy that painted it, and he said, I think he called it diamond or diamond. I was meant to look that up, I forgot. Whatever it is, man, it just buffs so nice. Okay, rotary step is done. Go ahead and wipe this off. So here's something I practice and I preach and I teach in all my classes. If you're going to sand down, as I like to say, some other dude's classic or muscle car, or whatever it might be, he's got a custom paint job and he needs you to make it look perfect, I always ask them if they can give me the painter's phone number. Usually they can. I call them up, tell the painter who I am, what I'm gonna do, and then I just politely ask them, how much clear did you put on? Or if it's a single stage, how much single stage did you put on? And I've never come across a painter that just didn't tell me. Just, oh, here's what I did, Mike. I put 5 heavy coats of clear. I put 2 heavy coats of clear. I put a cover coat. That's all that's on there. Don't sand it. But you want to try to find that stuff out so you have the confidence going in. Now, you can do things like buy a paint thickness gauge. And this is my favorite. This is a row point coating thickness gauge. Let me turn it on. And, but the thing is these types of gauges tell you the total film build. So that means the Bondo, the primer, the Bondo, the color coat, and the clear coat. It's going to tell you the whole film, but it doesn't tell you what the clear coat is. So I always use these for what I call a big picture indicator. Okay, it's going to tell me if the paint is thin or thick. We got 40 mils there, 49 mils there, 59 mils there, 53 mils there. So this thing has got some bond on it. There's no way there's that thick of a layer of paint on there. So here's what I do is I like to use these. I use it for what I call a big picture indicator. It's going to tell me the big picture. Is my paint really thick or is it really thin? That's all it's going to do. So that's not going to really help me a whole lot except for, give me some advanced warning. But here's what I do instead. I use great abrasive technology. I match the pad and the tool to the job and then use good technique. And after doing this for, well, I probably buffed up my first car in the 70s, so for 40 years, I've rarely made a mistake. I've made a couple mistakes, but that's called the school of hard knocks. You got to learn from them. But just use good abrasive technology. I wrote this article years ago. It says the most important factor when it comes to polishing paint is the abrasive technology. And most guys that I meet that are detailers, not most, but some guys, they're what are called alpha males. They're ego driven. Oh, I'm so great. And they'll buff a car like this and they'll go, I'm really good. And I always say like, no, you just moved the polish around. The abrasive technology did all the work. And and I'll spread some product out, but you see the abrasives, then you see the pad, then you see the tool, then you see the tool behind the tool. So it's not really the person. The technique is important, but it all starts with what's touching the paint. Okay, so for show cars, I like to do a 3-step process. This first process, I've got the blueberry pad from Buff and Shine on the Super Beast. Can you, is that gonna show up there? A lot of people don't know the nicknames for all the tools. I always tell tool companies, give your tool a nickname, don't make people memorize a part number. Okay. So that's the Super Beast. It's the newest version of the original Beast. It's lighter, quieter, cooler, smoother. Lighter, quieter, cooler, smoother. Has less OPM, has less RPM. But anytime I can use this, I like to use it because it's lighter, quieter, cooler, smoother. Okay, I'll put some product on here. This is the NSP 150. And this is our heavy cut primer, but it's nowhere near as aggressive as like the CoreCut and the CoreCut Plus. So first thing I want to do is I'm just going to spread my product out, let it kind of migrate onto the pad. Boom, this pad's ready to go. Now I'm going to spread this whole thing out over this whole section. This is kind of what I like about this tool. It's got the power. You can tackle huge chunks at a time. Okay, now that I've got this spread, I'm going to bring the speed all the way up to the 6. I'm going to put some pressure down here, and I'm going to refine the results from the wool pad and rotary polisher step, and I'm going to remove the holograms and create a more flat surface. Then I'll come back and perfect it. And this is a case where instead of doing that herky-jerky moment and looking at the paint as you leave it to see if the defects are gone so you know you can move on to new territory with the rotary, this is one where you just want to do a series of section passes. And just real quickly, again, I'm just going to cite my good friend Jason Rose. When we taught the class at the American Muscle Car Museum, amazing class, by the way, and there's pictures on the Dr. Beasley blog and on my forum, 6 cars in 2 days. But Jason teaches that when you're doing a test spot to count out how long you buff in seconds, and it's like 20, 30, 40 seconds. And that is a valid way to do it. But the problem is in my brain, I don't want to do that. Say it's going to take me 5 hours to buff out a car. I don't want to do that for 5 hours. So it's easier for me just to count out section passes. It's the same idea, just a different way of measuring. But something like this, I'll probably do 6 to 8 section passes. And then here's a technique I always share with people. And I know some people will make fun of it, but it works for me. If you want to borrow it, you can. I count my section passes out loud as I make them so I don't forget where I'm at. Because here's what the average person does. They start buffing, then they start thinking about that new car they're going to buy or what the wife told them to pick up from the store. They forget where they're at, so they add a few more to make sure they did enough. And by the time they've done that, they've added an hour of buffing time. So just count your section passes out loud. Okay. You know, I know some guys don't like this tool because they say it yanks them all over the place. So you know what that yanking is? That yanking is called power. That pad is grabbing that paint, it's trying to abrade it instead of stalling out this free spinning. Now people like free spinning tools because instead of yanking them, they just tend to slip. So it's really smooth. That's called less power. So I like all the power I get with the Beast, the Super Beast and the Sea Beast. That was 2 section passes.
This is 3. Notice I'm using a nice, slow arm speed. I'm putting all the pressure on the head, not back here, or I would buff crooked. And keeping that pad flat, even through this radius curve, trying to keep that pad as flat as I can. Is that 3 or 4? 3. That's 3. So that's why I always like to count out loud, because I forget. You know, there's 4, and it already looks good. Let's take a look, and then I'll lift this up so everybody can see it. By the way, there was a guy that was asking me how to correctly use a microfiber towel. And I wrote this article years ago called How to Fold and Use a Microfiber Towel. Now everybody laughs and think that's ridiculous. Why would you have to write such a mundane, basic article? Well, if you read the article, you would see the picture of the 1953 Corvette. And after I was there with the owner, and after we polished the whole thing out, I handed him a nice, clean, soft towel, folded it 4 ways to give him to wipe the wax off. Coatings were invented. It was like 15 years ago. And he took the towel and did this, scrunched it up and started wiping the wax off, and I about had a heart attack. Oh my God, stop. I refolded the towel. And then I showed him, this is your clamp, your thumb and your finger. You clamp the edges, not the nice big soft folded area, the edges. You lay your hand down flat, you spread your fingers out, you scrunch them together. Now you've got a good hold on the towel in case you're doing vertical size. Less important for horizontal panels. Then just start making overlapping passes. And anytime you make a smooth overlapping pass, your towel is able to overcome the surface tension between the wax or the polish or whatever it is you're trying to wipe off, and wipe it off effortlessly. Okay, let's lift this up and let everybody take a look. How's that looking?
Yep, keep going. Just take it all the way up.
So we went from an orange-pilled mess to it's looking pretty good. Okay, polisher. Okay, now this thing is actually fairly well broken. It's kind of wet. Can you walk over there to the slop sink and you'll see a red tire cleaning brush. Grab that for me. I want to show everybody how to clean primers off their pads. Okay, 3 pea-sized drops. Some people like the smooshy technique, some people don't. I kind of like it, but the thing I tell people is when you come up to a little pile of product, don't run the edge into it. Lift it up and grab it, sandwich it between the paint and the pad, and then start buffing. Okay. Yeah, just put it down right here. I'll try to remember that. Okay. Okay, so I've got my product spread out over the section I'm going to buff. And what that means is I have a uniform layer of 2 things, abrasive technology and lubrication. Now I'll start making my section passes. We'll just do 4 standard ones like we did here because that looks amazing. Being an 8mm gear-driven unit, you have a lot of precision as far as the abrading surface area. I can get right up to an edge, not almost to an edge, without getting on the edge. Now, in my RUPES tool collection, if you take one of my classes here, I have 12 of the RUPES Millet. The Millet is a 5mm gear-driven orbital. And I've also got the Harbor Freight Hercules forced rotation, which is an exact copy of the FLEX 3401. And I've got the Makita PO 5000C, which is another 5mm gear-driven orbital polisher. So besides using all the random orbital polishers and all the rotary polishers, you get a chance to try all of the gear-driven polishers and then see what's right for you. I think this is 3. I kind of lost count because I was talking. We'll call this 3 though. I'll do one more really solid section pass. Okay, last one. A little bit of tension around the key-lock there. Oh, here's how you clean NSPs off your foam buffing pads. This is a nice clean tire brush. And here's something I recommend. Always, you know, you can use a black one for your tires, but get one with the white bristles for pad cleaning or for doing any kind of, like, say you did some carpet or interior work. Because the problem with the black bristles, if you clean a tire and it gets all black and gooky, because the bristles are black, you can't see it. You take that in, put that on some cloth seat to scrub it, or, you know, whatever you're gonna scrub, you could stain it. When you keep them this white color, you can tell if it's dirty or not, so you don't stain something because you can't see it because you got black bristles. But I just take this like this and then just scrape off whatever's on there and get back to work. And one of the things I've noticed about the NSP primers, because they use a water-based nano gel for a carrying agent, is they never really get really saturated. Everything kind of just stays on the top, and that's where you want it. Okay, so next I'm gonna switch over to the RUPES Bigfoot cordless 15 millimeter free spinning random orbital polisher. Now, when I do show car work, and this is a show car, for example, if you were to go to a car show on a Saturday, you might see this on display in the parking lot or out in a nice grassy field at a park, but it definitely fits the criteria for a show car. It's not a four-door Honda paint, you know, from 1998 painted in metallic beige with hubcaps. It's a show car. And for show car work, even though this looks good, I always like to just do a final finishing polish using a much softer pad. This is a Buff and Shine black foam finishing pad. And then I'm gonna grab our NSP 45. This is half of a, 45 is like half the size of a human hair. So very, very small abrasive particle sizes, all uniform in size in that nano gel carrying agent. And the first time I was really impressed with this, I tell this story all the time, but I was working on a 1969 GTO. Since it's a dry pad, I'm gonna put a little extra product on there, but I'm also gonna be smushing it around. And it had single stage urethane paint. It was completely swirled and scratched up. And I had a whole bunch of big name brands, and everything I used removed the defects, but they kept leaving micromarring. And I had the Dr. Beasley's primer system with me, so I thought, you know, what the hell, let's give this a try. So I got a fresh polishing pad, the NSP 45. I made one pass into this like Montego red GTO hood. You've seen the car. And it just completely obliterated all the micromarring. And so now I use it anytime I got soft paint. It'll finish out on anything, but it will save your life if you're working on GM black, you know, like Tahoes and things like that. Okay, RUPES, and then RUPES probably hate me for this, but this is a 7-inch diameter pad on a 5-inch backing plate. But the way a Buff and Shine makes this pad is the backing plate's just a little undersized for the Velcro, so it's easy to see in center. And now look how big my footprint is, and it smooths the tool out, and for big panels like this, it's just a perfect match. Okay, there's the 4 setting. The same thing, when I pick this up, I tilt this and grab it. I don't just run the edge and grab it like that, okay? Spread my product out. Someone was asking me the other day ago if this product dusts, and I said no. Never seen it dust. In fact, as long as you're working it, it'll stay liquid on the surface. Okay, so now that I've got a uniform, remember, uniform layer of abrasive technology and lubrication, now I'm gonna probably just make like 4 or 5 section passes. And for this step, you know, RUPES teaches put your thumb right here. This is how you hold the tool, so you don't need to push down real hard. So however you wanna do it, but it's really key to keep that pad nice and flat and maintain good pad oscillation and good pad rotation for the most efficient polishing action. If the pad does stall out, the orbital action is gear driven, so it's still orbiting, it's just you're losing a rotation. So it's still working for you, just not as fast as efficiently. And that's where RUPES would say, well then go ahead and bump that thing up to the 5 or 6 setting to power through that area where the pad's stalling. And then you can bring it back down to 4 when you get back to just a nice flat surface that it rotates and oscillates easy on. Okay, so that was 1 section pass. There's 2 on the passenger side. I'm not really trying to do major defect removal, so I understand RUPES says work the size 6 times, the size of 6 pads. That was 2. This would be 3. But all I'm trying to do here is just, you know, for the paint look good. I'm just trying to maximize the gloss and clarity. Just make it a little nicer looking. And of course, after that, then you put the ceramic coating on, or if you want to use a car wax or a synthetic paint sealant, you know, however you want to protect it, spray on coating. Okay, that was 3. So I'm going to stop at 4, but now I'm going to bring my pressure up. Now, this is show car work. I always tell people that polishing paint is an art form. It's not a grinding process. So with an art form, we bring the human elements of care and passion into the process. It's more than just the pad and the abrasive and the tool and how you use it. And you got to care about it, but I'm bringing my pressure up. So I just want light contact with this soft pad and this ultra fine cut polish. And just try to really jewel this paint. Just really make it look super glossy and clear. Okay, I'm getting low on towels here. This one just became perfect. It's closest to my hand. Okay, no dust, easy wipe off. This is gonna look amazing. Now, I'm gonna go ahead today and I'm gonna finish sanding and probably get most of the buffing. Cars like this take me about 20 hours, sometimes less, it just depends. But I'm not gonna do this finish polishing step. I'm gonna let the owner come get it and take it home. He's gonna go ahead and put the interior, the engine, the exhaust, redo the wheels and brakes, all that good stuff. He's got a lot of work to do to this. And when he finally has it all done, and I'll have him bring it back, and I'll do the final polish step and coat it. And that way, well, I just know it's gonna get some damage as he's, you know, leaning on the fenders to put the motor in, all this good stuff. Just normal stuff. Okay. Let's go ahead and lift this up and see how she looks. Oh, that's the block falling. Huge difference. Okay. Now, I'll cover one more topic here, just in case there's any do-it-yourselfers out there, maybe people that are new that have never installed a coating. But I've got the Dr. Beasley's MX coating over there. Let me grab an applicator pad. There we go. Installing a coating is simple, but it's tedious. And I will show you what I mean by tedious. Let me grab a coating first. MX. There we go. Sorry for walking offset there. Okay, so this is a 2-part system. Can you go grab me a couple more fresh towels? I really need a fresh towel for this system. The way you use this, though, is it comes with this product called Paint Coating Builder. You can also buy this in a larger bottle called Gloss Builder. Kit comes with a auto fiber brand, but a coating saver. If you remind me, I'll cut this in half and show you how it works. But basically, what you want to do is the instructions say to apply this with the applicator pad. I usually like to do it with the towel, but either way. And what this is going to do is the nano gel inside of the polishes, the NSP primers, it's already laying down a ceramic foundation and creating anchor points for the coating to bond to. So you're already starting to build protection and, of course, gloss and all that good stuff. So apply that. Wait 2 to 3 minutes and wipe it off. For sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and remove it. And what this does is it clarifies the paint. It makes it just incredibly clear. God, I'm getting some smudges over here. There we go. And it creates a perfect finish to then put your coating onto. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'll take the coating. I use the gray side, so now I use the blue side. Where did I put my coating at? Here it is. And something I like about this coating is I know everybody likes to see water beading. The problem with water beading is it can lead to water spots. Then you got to buff out the car in most cases. Now, a lot of guys, they like to use an X pattern. Some guys like to box out the area they're going to coat, however you want to do it. But the idea behind that X pattern is now when I start making my overlapping passes, every time I come by, the first time I pick up some of that excess coating I laid down, so I'm putting it down a nice uniform layer. And that does make sense to me. I think I saw one of my friends say you can go in circular motions, however you want to do it. I think it's easier just to do a crosshatch pattern because it's just easier to monitor, and say if you have employees, it's easier to teach them how to do it versus some kind of random circular motions. What was that, 2 times, Craig? Here's 3. And normally you do this like 4 times. And there's no magic to the number 4, but the idea being is to push that coating into all the microscopic pores of the paint and all what's called interstices. Interstices are microscopic cracks and fissures. Now, fresh paint like this probably doesn't have any interstices, any cracks in it. But as paint gets old on a factory finish or a custom finish, every time that panel expands and contracts and expands and contracts, as paint gets older, it becomes less flexible, it starts to crack. They're microscopic, can't see them. But that's kind of the idea, is you want to push that coating into all the microscopic pores and then all the interstices. Wait about 30 seconds to a minute. It has a fairly long working time. Then just come back with a clean microfiber towel. Notice how I grabbed it and lightly leveled that coating. So you spread it out kind of like you're doing with your applicator pad. Now you're using a towel, a little bit bigger surface, a little bit bigger footprint. Then give it a final wipe. That section's done. Then you can move on to this section. Okay, let me bring this up. Then we'll do the gloss meter. See what our DOI is. Yep. Yeah, that came out really good. You know, this isn't the best paint job. I like what Jason Kilmer said one time, is there's no such thing as perfect paint. There's always going to be defects somewhere, and that's true for this paint job. But to take it from where it was to where it's at now is a dramatic transformation. Okay, so just for fun, this is the detailometer. My good friend Daryl Case is down in Brazil at Detailer Fest. Hey, Daryl. And this is a pretty cool little tool. So let me go ahead and turn it on. And I've already calibrated it. There we go. It comes in this little base here. And we'll do a little quick measurement here. Now, if I bring this up, up on my form, I got a picture of this. I can get you the actual before readings by going to my form. There's a picture of it up there. Okay, so the way this thing works is you just want to carefully set it down. And then this is already set up. I'm just going to push the button. It's measuring. Wow. Okay. So, Craig, I'm going to hold this still. I'm going to ask you to try to get it so people can see the numbers on there. See, the DOI is 97.6. The haze is 0.1. 0.0 is perfect. And then the RIQ is 90.9. Now, when I first did this, I forget the RIQ measurement, but this was down like 64. So we've dramatically flattened out that paint and increased the DOI, and that was the whole goal of sanding down a car. Just real quickly, because I always forget things I wanted to cover, but none of us should ever be sanding factory paint. So say you just went out and bought a brand new C8 Corvette, and you go, man, I love this thing, but it's got some orange peel. I know my friend Jim over here, he can sand and buff. I'll have him sand down my new Corvette. The problem with that is the factory finish on most factory paint jobs is thinner than a Post-it note. Okay, so find a Post-it note or a piece of printer paper or even a dollar bill. Hold that between your index finger and your thumb, and it's pretty easy for your brain to wrap around just how thin that's thin. Okay, your clear coat on your factory finish is thinner. Okay, so that's why most professionals I know, they won't sand down factory paint. Can it be done? Sure, it could be done. And if you did the entire thing without going through the clear coat and exposing the base coat, the problem is you'll have left that paint, as I like to say, whisper thin. Whisper thin. And in a place like southern Florida here, South Florida, exposed to the sun and repeated exposure to water, water is a natural solvent, you'll get clear coat failure on all the horizontal surfaces. Now you got to repaint the car. So look, it's just not a good idea to sand factory paint because it's so thin. And always remember this, whenever you sand down paint, sanding takes off paint, compounding takes off paint, polishing takes a little paint off,
pretty soon you won't have anything left. So in most cases, when you ever hear about somebody wet sanding or damp sanding or block sanding or dry sanding, it's on a custom car that someone's fixing up and they've had a custom paint job, and because the painter knows it's gonna be sanded, he sprays some extra clear on there. So there's plenty for me to sand and remove, get my swirl marks out, and then also plenty so when I give it back to the customer, it will hold up over time exposed to the elements. Anyway, is there any questions in there I can answer, Craig?
No. We kind of, as we went along.
Yeah, it's all good because, you know, if there's no questions, that means you must have probably covered all the topics. Anyway, like I said in the beginning of this video, you know, I'm not trying to tell everybody this is how you do it. This is just how I do it, and it does work, you know. Learning how to edge your panels, start out hand sanding with a flexible hand backing pad is what it's called, the Meguiar Z7200. You know, use quality sandpapers. I've got the Eagle abrasives by KOVAX in here. I got a little soapy water in my bucket and in my spray bottle, so I have lubrication as I'm sanding. When I switch over to the dry sanding technique, I keep a microfiber towel. This is not the dry sanding, this is the damp sanding. But keep a, see all the paint on there? Keep a microfiber towel handy, and then you just kind of rub it around like that, and it pulls all that paint off. And damp sanding, you don't really got to clean the pad. It'll kind of self-clean as you're sanding with it. Come back with your, you know, rotary polishers. My favorite method to pull sanding marks out because it's fast and efficient. And then come back and pull your holograms. I understand that the fibers, these fibers right here are going to put their own cut in the paint, so I know that, so I come back with a foam pad. The difference between a foam pad and a fiber pad is this has all these individual fibers that cut as they spin on the paint. This has a uniform surface texture. That's how it's able to level the paint without putting its own cut in. So come back and do at least one polishing step, and, you know, if you're doing show car work, you know, consider doing a third. It's kind of up to you. Seal the paint however you want to, and that's how you wet sand, cut, and buff. Anyway, thanks for joining us here today. One thing I just would recommend is I do have this class coming up July 12th, but all my classes are the same. I bring in lots of cool cars. They're hands-on. There's no chairs. There's no PowerPoint. Nothing wrong with that. I used to teach PowerPoint classes, but I just find people learn better by doing versus sitting in a chair, listen to me talk for hours. And I have a one-day class coming up every month this year. Except for September, it's a two-day class, and the second day and the two-day class has everything in the first day. So it's all paint correction, compounding, wool pads, rotary puffers, rotary polishers, and ceramic coatings. The second day is sanding. I bring in someone's cool street rod, we sand it down, buff it out, so it's a lot of fun. But that's in September, my last 2-day for this year. And I would also just encourage you to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, you know, because we put out a lot of stuff. Then two more things. One, if you want to be notified every time, I've got some brand new, really cool articles and reviews coming out. Go up to the Dr. Beasley's website and subscribe to the newsletter. It'll tell you when videos are coming out, new articles are coming out, and all the articles have videos too. I cover a lot of different topics. And then something to be on the lookout for. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to share this publicly, but I'm going to go ahead and put myself at risk of getting in trouble. Coming up in July, if you're watching My Classic Car with Dennis Gage, Dr. Beasley's is now a sponsor of that show, and I'm going to be sharing tech tips up there. So the first one is going to be on Bead Hero, the next is on Leather Cream. They're real simple, but it's just our way of trying to make friends with a lot of car enthusiasts around the world. Anyway, so keep your eye open for that up on My Classic Car. Besides that, thank you for watching this morning. I know the people on the Pacific Coast had to get up early. Us out here on the East Coast, you know, we can sleep in a little bit, but thanks for joining us. With that, let's go ahead and see if we can't exit the live stream correctly this time.